there everyone, welcome to the show.
Alright, so last week over on the forums, So That's Who I Am said she wanted a hardcore sewing tutorial. Scarlett, Schmeryl, I'm Gonna Eat That Fish Girl, Muffin Madness, and Dizzy all said they wanted to see more independent designers. And over in last week's show comments, Miss Southern Belle and Wonder Pets both asked for hat ideas. So hats, plus a hardcore sewing tutorial, plus an independent designer, equals this week's show.
How to make a hat out of an old pair of pants with guest designer Liz Tilley.
My name is Liz Tilley and my label is called Liz Tilley Designs. I make hats, garments, aprons, beaded flowers, and accessories. Today I'm going to be making a hat and a pair of shorts out of a pair of trousers that I got at Buffalo Exchange. If you're using old pants that have been in the bottom of the I'm going to get rid of these or throw them away pile, it's easier to iron them first. I know more or less that I want the shorts to be fairly short, so we'll just cut them off. And there you go, shorts. It's good now to figure out which end is going to be going around my head. Where you want to measure to get a head size measurement is 5/8 of an inch above the brow. That's just a typical head size. This end appears to be 21.5, which is exactly my head size. I'm marking at 9 inches from the bottom so that I can cut it off. In this case, I'm just going to cut the seam off. So I'm going right now to stitch in some gathering stitches. I'll be using the longest stitch that my machine has. Every few inches I'm doing 2 lines of stitching for gathering because I'm going to be ruching. So now I'm going to stitch it together and form a tube. I'm going to go back to my normal stitch length so that the seam is strong enough. Iron this open. Now I'll go back to the long stitch length and again just stitch along my seam allowances to hold them down. Gather together the needle thread and the bobbin thread, and I'm going to tie a square knot. This top piece is going to need to be gathered by not actually very much, only an inch. So what I'm going to do is decide where's the front and the back. I'm going to flatten out the piece as much as possible, marking center front and center back on both the bottom and top edge of the tube. Mark the side. And then I'm going to turn it inside out. I'll measure the width of the remaining fabric at the narrowest point. I'll just mark my tolerances so I know what not to exceed. I'm now going to trace around the pattern. Cut this out using a 1/4 inch seam allowance along the bottom. But then for this top, I'm actually going to use a 1/2 inch seam allowance because it just gives a little more material to work with. I want to give the bill some amount of stiffness. I'm just going to use 2 layers of muslin. I'm just going to stitch all over this to make it stiff so that I can put it inside the bill. I'm going to stitch the bottom of the bill together. Now I will flip it inside out. Now I stick this in here. It is all pinned together. Top stitch it. I'm going to cut out the tip, which is the top part of the hat. What I'm going to do is cut out an oval that is 7 inches long and 5 inches wide. I'm going to draw a line that is more or less along the grain. Then I'll fold it in half and pin it and sketch an oval. Now I'm going to cut it out, leaving a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Because I am using stretchy fabric, I'm going to cut out and iron down a piece of iron-on interfacing. So this I'm going to call the back and this the front. What I'm going to do is cut out little V's all the way around here. I cut these out because when working with curved lines, it's the best way to make things fit together.
Phew! You wanted an intense lesson, you got it. When we return, the rest of this week's tutorial.
not buying it, Lloyd.
You cannot not agree.
America
look.
has made its choice.
We have not sold out.
I would love to sell out.
So I've pinned now the B's to the B's, the F's to the F's, and then the two sides together. And now I'm going to pin the rest of the way around. I finished pinning the tip onto the side band now, and I'm going to stitch them together. And I'm just kind of turning it and straightening it from the inside as I go around. Press the seam to make it super flat. It's just to make the seam allowance go out toward the side band. I'm going to edge stitch around the seam that I just sewed to ensure that when I start pulling the gathering stitches that they stay. Again, keeping the needle threads and the bobbin threads together in a pair, and I'll hold the needle threads and pull the bobbin threads. The ruching part, the gathering particularly, is fairly time consuming, and it's really important just to be careful and not break threads and to tie the knots off so that they're strong. And also I'm going to leave a seam allowance in the bottom of 3/4 of an inch. Tie a square knot. I'm making the front bit 3 inches long and then the back bit 4.5 inches long. Center front to center of brim. From the seam allowance line out, like this. Now I'm going to stitch the brim on. So now the hat is more or less put together, but what I am going to do is put in a head size ribbon. Fold it over just 5/8 of an inch, and I've pinned it into the back, overlapping it about 5/8 of an inch. I'm going to stitch right along the edge there, and then just through one layer, and then basically press it into the inside of the hat. And when I get to the bill, I'm going to make sure that I'm stitching below the attachment point. Fold the ribbon to the inside and press it. So then, there it is. A little cute hat.
A big thanks to Liz for hooking it up with this week's lesson. Do you have anything you want to see us make? Email us at tips@threadbanger.com.
So last week we raffled off 2 Janome sewing machines at the Renegade Craft Fair in San Francisco. Now for the big announcement, the winners of the 2 Janome Magnolia sewing machines are raffle tickets number 473 and number 689. Don't worry, if you lost your tickets, we'll be contacting you via email.
And next week we're going to take a look at our trip to Renegade, so you definitely don't want to miss it.
Till next week, see ya.